I'm Glauber Assis. I have a PhD in sociology. I'm also a psychedelic dad and co-founder of the Psychedelic Parenthood community, PPC. And today I'm here with my friend Emily Sinclair. She has a PhD in anthropology. She's also a psychedelic mom and education program coordinator at PPC. We are officially launching the Psychedelic Parenthood community, which is the very first international network of psychedelic parents and caregivers united across several continents with the purpose of bringing together parents from diverse backgrounds and cultures in psychedelic medicine spaces to connect, share knowledge and experiences, communicate, and support each other. And today we have the pleasure of being also fiscally sponsored by MAPS. So if you want to support our project, you can go to the MAPS page or visit our website, psychedelicparenthood.org. And for this launch, we have the great honor of welcoming a person who is a great inspiration to us who are psychedelic parents. He is at the forefront of many important battles and causes in the psychedelic field, including also psychedelic parenthood. And his activism also inspired very much our vision for the psychedelic parenthood community. He's the founder of the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. He received his doctorate in public policy from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, where he wrote his dissertation on the regulation of the medical uses of psychedelics and marijuana. And his master's thesis is on a survey of oncologists about smoked marijuana versus the oral THC pill in nausea control for cancer patients. His undergraduate thesis at New College of Florida was a 25-year follow-up to the classic Good Friday experiment, which evaluated the potential of psychedelic drugs to catalyze religious experiences. He also conducted a 34-year follow-up study to Timothy Leary's Concord Prison experiment and also studied with Dr. Stanislav Grof and was among the first to be certified as a holotropic breathwork practitioner. His professional goal is to help develop legal contexts for the beneficial uses of psychedelics and marijuana, primarily as prescription medicines, but also for personal growth for otherwise healthy people, and eventually to become a legally licensed psychedelic therapist. So, welcome, Rick Doblin. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for reading my entire bio there. The part you missed is that I have another sentence about I have living here in Boston with three empty rooms from children that have gone off to in their 20s, and gone off to college and live on their own. So I'm
Yeah,
also
that's
a
amazing.
self-employed.
Thank you very much. Actually, this was part of the very first question we
Oh,
have. So we all know you and your activism and your beautiful and important work in the psychedelic field, but we still don't know your background as a father. So can you
oh,
tell us a little bit about your journey as a father and also a psychedelic dad?
yes, I'd love to. So first off, I think we need to say that I'm a late bloomer. I mature slowly. So, and it's been difficult to try to, sort out what I want to do in my life. So I didn't get married for the very first and only time until I was 1 month short of 40. And our first child was not born until after I was 41. And then we had three children in 4 years. So I'm sort of late coming to parenthood compared to a lot of people, but it felt like the right time for me. And I would not have wanted to do it any sooner. Now, one of the things that was clear is that because my work is so much involved with psychedelics and marijuana, that I would um, want to explain it to my children what I was doing about psychedelics, and also because there's so much propaganda, negative information that you get in schools. My kids went through the DARE program, which is drug abuse resistance education run by police, completely biased. So I felt that I had to educate them early before they would start getting all these negative messages from society. But
Mhm.
what I also found when they were very little and reading them bedtime stories with my wife, that children want to hear the same story over and over and over. They really like it. And so for the parent, it gets kind of repetitive and boring.
Mhm.
So what I would tend to do then is I would smoke marijuana before I would read bedtime stories. And so I felt that marijuana and parenthood went together great. And my kids, when they were little, we didn't even tell them at the time that marijuana was illegal. Later, it became legal in Massachusetts for both medical and recreational. So they just took it as a normal thing. And one of the other parts is I'm Jewish, and we would read the Jewish prayers on Friday night. And one of the prayers is a prayer over the wine.
Mm.
So it's praising God for creating the fruit of the vine. And I would add the fruit of the vine and the bud of the plant. And it was pretty hilarious that our youngest child, after growing up in this way, when she went to college, she went home for a friend of hers visit, and they were on Friday night, and they were Jewish, and they said these prayers, and they ended up with Blessed our Lord, Lord of the universe, who's created the fruit of the vine. They all stopped. She went on to say, and the bud of the plant. And they all looked at her like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I thought that's part of the prayer." She thought that that part was in the actual prayer book. So it was really hilarious for her to be looking at her friends' parents and others, and to be blessing the marijuana, and for them to say that's not in the official Jewish prayer book. We just added that. So from a very early age, they really understood, just that they associated marijuana with bedtime stories.
Mhm.
But they thought nothing of it. As they got a little bit older, we started saying, well, it's kind of at the time it's illegal outside of the house, and we have different views inside and outside, and then as they were growing up, we talked to them all the time about, or not all the time, but a lot of time about what my work was and why psychedelics were important and why we were trying to study them in therapy and all these different kind of bits of education. So I thought that was really, really important. But one of the things that I remember very much about my childhood is that I was a bar mitzvah at age 13. I'm the oldest of four kids. And I had this idea that this rite of passage that has been used for thousands of years was somehow going to change me, that I was going to grow, that there would be some spiritual elements to it in my inner life. A lot of times you spend time in Hebrew school learning Hebrew and learning to read from the Torah and learning, about that. But I thought that this was going to be some kind of transformation and that there would be some kind of message from God or something. Just you're a child and you're thinking. And I had no older siblings to tell me that it was different for them. So I just remember this incredible emptiness, waking up the next morning after my bar mitzvah was over and realizing that nothing had shifted internally. There was no connection with spirituality. There was no questioning, who am I? Where do I fit in? You know, am I more of a man now after my bar mitzvah? None of that happened. And so, again, I'm 13. And so I told myself, this takes time. God is busy. A lot of people got bar mitzvah. Maybe tomorrow something will happen. And then tomorrow, the next day, nothing happened. And then nothing happened again. And then now it's a whole week later, and it's the next Saturday, um, where bar mitzvahs take place, and all these new people got bar mitzvahed. And then nothing. I just realized that if God had a list, I had fallen off the list because there was so many new people that were going to be at the top of the list. And so it was just this emptiness. And so when I finally tried LSD 4 years later, when I was 17, almost 18, um, I thought, this is questioning, who am I? Where do I belong? What is beyond myself? The sense of the ego dissolution a little bit. I'm connected to something much bigger. And I thought, this is what my bar mitzvah should have been, this rite of passage, where now it's, do I have the courage to let go, to go into the unknown? It just made me realize that when kids are 12 and 13, in that age, and they're going through puberty. That's where traditional cultures have rites of passage.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that. So my wife and I thought about this a bunch. And when our kids turned 13, each of them, we said to them, we think you're ready for marijuana or MDMA if you want to do it. Just come to us and we would be glad to give it to you and we can do it together and you can see what these things do. And we think that it might really be helpful for you. And,
Mhm.
to our surprise, each one of these kids said, we're not ready.
Wow.
They didn't grow up in a psychedelic culture. I mean, they did in a way, but the larger society wasn't that.
Yeah.
And so they felt that they weren't ready. But it turned out to be the best anti-drug strategy we could have thought of is just give them, the
Yeah.
opportunity to do it. Then it
Mhm.
wasn't a sign of rebellion. It wasn't something that their parents, that they would sneak around and do. But over time, they did become interested, and we did provide access, and it was, my daughter when she was 14 wanted to smoke with us for the first time. My son, who's the oldest, and it was the most beautiful experience to bring that into the family setting. She's only 18 months younger than her brother, and there was a lot of um, rivalry as they were growing up. When it came time for her to try marijuana for the first time, he came along with us. And he was like giving her advice. So this is how you roll a joint. This is a bong. I used the volcano vaporizer with her,
Uh-huh.
which you can see the smoke, it cools it down. It was kind of a gentle way for her to do it. And Eden, our son, and Lila, the daughter, they just were together for hours. And when he went downstairs after they'd gotten all this experience, she said to me that that was the longest that they had spoken in years in
Wow.
one period of time, that he was now the big brother and sharing things that she didn't know, and he felt more comfortable. So it really, the psychedelic parenthood brought our kids together.
Yeah.
And so, then on the 16th, when my son was 16, he and three of his friends were traveling through Europe for the summer, and I was doing psychedelic harm reduction at Boom Festival in Portugal.
Mhm.
And they ended up their trip after staying with a bunch of friends of mine and others, throughout Europe, four of these boys, and we knew all their moms, and their moms were speaking to my wife and saying, do you think these kids are going to go do psychedelics or something when they end up at Boom Festival? And she's like, well, she said, Rick is not so good at prevention, but he's very good at rescue. And so, as it turned out, they did want to do MDMA at Boom Festival, and I had this kind of secret hope, that they would do MDMA, and my son would say, "Dad, I love you. This is what's going on in my internal life, and here's how I am." And what happened is when they got the MDMA, the four of them, they immediately took off, and we didn't see them for 24 hours. And I was, oh, this was like, because there's, 40,000, 50,000 people. It's a great thing to explore. They're wandering around. But finally he comes back, and I think, okay, now he's going to tell me how much he loves me and how much, here's what his internal life is. None of that happened. But what he said was beautiful. He said, Dad, now I understand why you want to make this into a medicine.
Wow. Hmm.
It was really
Beautiful.
touching,
Hmm.
and so each of my kids have done psychedelics with themselves, with their friends. They experiment with microdosing. I think they all have a pretty healthy relationship with
Hmm.
psychedelics. And I felt that it brought us together, and that in a way, this idea of being honest with your kids and sharing with them, it happens in ayahuasca communities, it happens in the Native American church. But in America, there's just this incredible divide between parents often scared to talk to their children for fear of being exposed. And um, so I think that the drug war has got in between parents educating their children the way they want to. And that's one of
Hmm.
the worst parts of the drug war when it comes into your home and impacts how you speak to your children. And and this is the last thing I'll say of this section, is that a lot of people are not aware that in America, 23 states in the United States, there's a nationwide prohibition against use of alcohol by minors. And,
Wow.
by minors, we mean under 21. But 23 states have a parental override. Means that if you can give alcohol to your children if you want to, and
Mm,
it's not against the law.
mhm.
Now, that's not all the states, but around half the states where you can do that. And I think that's the way I think that regulation should be for psychedelics in the future, to be very clear that we want the families to be able to educate their children however they see fit. And whether it's to tell them never to do this, or to be honest with them, or to share it with them, or to not share it with them, that should be something that's in the parents, not the government. And that's, I think, the core place that we come at this, that I believe now, is that the education of children should be left to the parents. The government should not be interfering. And it's not, when we look at the way in which different societies have integrated psychedelics, the Native American church, as I said, they don't have age limits. So I
Yeah.
think that we've got the whole wrong system
Mhm.
in the United States right now.
Mhm. I
So,
think, can I just, one thing I think that comes out so much from that is how what you're saying there and your example showing is if we if we're open with children and we actually introduce them even to psychedelics, then they're less likely to end up abusing these substances or others, right? Um,
I
you
think
know,
so.
so
And yeah, and they're also less likely to just rely on information from their friends. They're
yeah.
more likely to get information from their parents, which is often more reliable.